We're going to do a maintenance video on the new Hawk 250 from Ricky Power Sports. If this is your first dirt bike, I really recommend watching this and also reading your owner's manual. You can also watch this for other dirt bikes, as a lot of them have the same features and functions as far as brakes and wheels and things like that. Start with safety first. A lot of people think that maintenance is just work that has to be done on the bike, but it's going to protect you and keep you safe. If you have a bolt come loose or the wrong bolt come loose, it's not going to be good, especially when you're dealing with a bike that you could be doing high speeds on or using on the road or whatever the use is. So first thing you're going to do after the bike's, even though it's been assembled by a certified mechanic, whether you get it assembled or whether you assemble it, always make sure before you ride it to go through and check all of the bolts. I always start on the front brake. You don't want to have any braking issues or failures, so I go through and I touch literally each bolt and make sure that everything looks good and it's not loose, and that is after I've tightened everything as well. So an 8, 10, and 12 millimeter typically tightens and fits all of the bolts on your bike, so I would tighten them, make sure that they're wrench tight, and then I would just go through everything and check and kind of work your way back through the bike, your shifter, your foot pegs, your kickstand, your passenger foot pegs, and then always, most importantly, make sure your chain is in good condition. If your chain becomes too loose, it can derail and cause the bike to lock up because your chain will get stuck. A lot of times the chain throws forward and ends up breaking your left side case cover and causing all kinds of problems. So it's definitely worth spending the time now to maintenance your chain. Tightening your chain, you can see here, you're going to want to loosen these bolts, and then you're going to have your chain tightener back here. You're going to want to take this, if you turn this 2 turns, you're going to want to do the same thing on the other side of the dirt bike. You cannot just tighten the chain by tightening or loosening one side of the chain. So whatever you do, it has to be equal. If you tighten this all the way out, your wheel then turns, and then it will no longer be straight or true. Speaking of the wheel, you want to make sure and touch and feel all of the spokes all the way around. And the first 2 or 3 rides, they may not feel loose, but it's very important to spend the time tightening your spokes and keeping your wheel true. So while doing that, a lot of people will take a spoke wrench and start tightening it all the way down, every spoke. Well, what that does is it only tightens this side of the wheel, and then the wheel will get closer to the hub, and then your wheel is untrue. So it's no longer round, the bottom pushes in, and then it will not roll straight. So what you have to do is you have to tighten every 3rd spoke. So start with 1, give it 2 or 3 turns, depending on how loose it is, and then go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and do that all the way around the wheel till you get back to here, and then go to the next spoke, and then go all the way around the wheel. Wire down here, make sure no wires are loose, your blinkers, check your fender bolts. A lot of times your fender, because your exhaust is right here, you'll get a lot of rattle right here. So a lot of times bolts will come loose down here. And if you find a bolt that keeps coming loose continuously, go ahead and add Loctite to it. Don't be scared to put Loctite on any bolts. We do that a lot on assembly. And then get around to your rear. This is your master cylinder for your rear brake. You can adjust this up or down. You always want this to be level. You don't want it up here, and you don't want it way down here. And there's adjustments on here to do that. That'll adjust it up and down. Spark plug looks good. Carburetor. Just kind of feel your way around the bike. Again, this is after you've wrench tightened everything. This is just a overlook of the maintenance. Can't stress enough, oil. Make sure and check your oil before every ride. This bike is actually very convenient because you don't have to take the dipstick off. You can actually just look at your window. So you want to make sure that your bike is nice and level, and make sure that it's going to be halfway up in that window. After you've looked at everything, you're going to want to start your braking cycle. It's very important not to get on the bike and just rev it up and go riding for 2 or 3 hours and don't ever look back. It's not how you break a bike in. So you're going to want to break the bike in 3 heat cycles. First heat cycle, give it a small spin around the block, fill it out, make sure everything's running good, make sure nothing's going on with it. come back in your garage, let it cool back down, and while it's cooling down, go ahead and start looking at everything. Make sure that nothing's coming loose, check over all the bolts again, make sure everything's okay, and then you're ready for heat cycle number 2. Once you go through heat cycle number 2, you're going to ride it a little longer, get it a little bit warmer, a little bit hotter. Again, don't over rev or get your RPMs to red line area. You want to run and break your bike in a very low RPM, which gives that motor time for the seals and the oil to warm up and the valves and everything to seal properly. Once you do that, do it again a 3rd time. After the 3rd time, come back, check it again. Yes, this takes time, but it is very important and will help your bike a lot out, and the longevity of it as well as maintenance makes a big difference. And it doesn't matter what kind or style or brand of bike that you have. You could have a Honda, a Yamaha, whatever bike it is, you need to go through these heat cycles. You need to make sure that nothing's coming loose. It's just kind of the nature of the power sports industry. Once you go through those 3 heat cycles and you're ready to go, I recommend changing your oil. And the reason I do that is change your oil, make sure that there's no metal fibers in your oil, which means that your motor's properly breaking in, there's no issues with it. You want to know right away if you got a problem, because then you can call back us, you can call back whoever you purchased the dirt bike to, you can take it back to the mechanic that assembled it for you. So that after you change your oil, make sure you get the proper oil specs that go in your dirt bike. With these, you got a dipstick, so you can put the oil in there and check it as you go. You also have the oil window. If you do drain it completely out, if you have an oil filter, you're going to want to take accountability for the oil filter, because an oil filter will hold oil as well. Once you're done with that, you got the oil change, you got gas in it. If there's a starting issue and you have any issues, first thing to check is to make sure that your kill switch is in the proper spot. One's got an X through it, you're going to always want it on the little half circle. Okay, this is an electric bike, but turn your key on, you got your electric bike, pull your clutch in, make sure it's not in gear. This actually has a neutral and gauges on it, so it's real nice. And then you can start it up. Now, for some reason, if you had problems and the bike didn't start, what would you do? First thing I would do is make sure that your motorcycle is getting gas. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to follow the gas line, which this is your petcock coming down from the gas tank, and this gas line's going into my carburetor. First thing I want to do is make sure that I have the gas on in the proper position. If you don't know what on is, you can remove this hose and then play with it until you figure out which way on is flowing gas to that hose. Then you want to make sure that your hose is getting gas into your carburetor. If your carburetor is getting gas, the next thing that I would do if it still doesn't start is I would come around here, and you're going to want to check your spark plug for spark. So remove your valve cap, remove your spark plug. You can place the spark plug back in to your spark plug cap, and then you can actually touch it to the cylinder of the motorcycle, which is metal, and then you can use the electric start, or you can kick it over. It'll kick over real easy because this is going to release all the pressure, so there will be no piston pressure inside of your cylinder head, and that will allow this to just push over very easy. And you're going to want to hold it on there, and you're going to see an arc on the spark plug at the very end of it. If it's getting spark and it's getting gas, there shouldn't be any other reason for the bike not to start, unless there's something wrong with your kill switch or you don't have the clutch or the brake pulled in properly. Beyond that, go ahead and reach out for further assistance through the mechanic that assembled your bike, or you can give us a call online, because we do have tech help that you can call in and speak to. If you got any other questions, please feel free to give us a call. There's a lot of material on the internet that you can read if you've got concerns, but number one, safety first. Make sure you always got your bike in tip-top shape. Thanks.